Hello guys. So here in this session we are going to learn how to deploy EKS. Sorry. Hello guys. So in this session we are going to learn how to deploy Node.js app to EKS using GitHub Actions. So as you can see, this is my GitHub repository with the name Deploy Node.js App to EKS using GitHub Actions. So to deploy Node.js app to EKS, here we are going to use GitHub Action repository, right? So here first of all we need to install EKS, right? Means we need to create EKS. Then after that we are going to deploy Node.js app to EKS, right? Okay. So for that, first of all here, as you can see, this is my article to create EKS, Amazon EKS cluster using EKS CTL. So first of all, we need to create EKS cluster. So that's why here we are going to follow this article. So now let's start. So as you can see here I have successfully launched one instance with the name EKS, and here I have successfully connected to my instance, right? So now we are going to follow this article to create EKS cluster. So let's create EKS cluster first. So here as you can see the step. So the first step is we need to install EKS CTL CLI tool for creating EKS cluster on Amazon. So I'm going to copy this command to install EKS CTL tool. So firstly, I'm going to paste this here. Okay, it's done. Now the next step is we need to move EKS CTL setup to this location. So for that, we need to run this command. Okay. Then next is if you want to check the EKS CTL version, then we can change. So we can check the version using this command. Okay, as you can see the version. Okay. Now it's done. That means we have successfully installed EKS CTL on our Ubuntu. Okay. Now here you can see the some commands to below are EKS CTL help commands. If you want, then you can check the command one by one. Okay. Now the next step is we need to install kubectl. So for that here the GPG keys. So firstly we need to add this GPG keys using curl command. Okay. Now the next is create apt repo for kubectl. For that we need to run this command. So I'm going to run this command here. Okay, it's done. Now the next is add Kubernetes official apt repository. So for that here we need to run this command. Okay, it's also done. Now the next step is firstly we need to update our system package before installing kubectl. So I'm going to update my system package. So as you know the command to update our system package sudo apt-get update. Okay, it's done. Now let's clear the screen first, and then now let's install kubectl. Okay, now it's done. So let's clear the screen first. Okay. Now the next step is we need to install AWS CLI right here. So first of all, download the AWS CLI bundle, right? So as you can see the command, so I'm going to download my CLI bundle. Okay, it's done. Now the next step is here we need to install the unzip package right here. So here Firstly, install unzip package using sudo apt install unzip. As you can see, it's installing unzip package. Okay, it's done. Now let's extract our AWS CLI bundle using this command. Now as you can see, it's unzipping. So it's extracting files. Okay, now it's done. Now let's clear the screen first. And now let's install AWS CLI. So how to install? So is the command. So I'm going to install my AWS CLI. So it's done. Now here, as you can see, if you want to check the version, then you can check the version using below command. So this is my AWS CLI version. Now let's clear the screen first. Okay. Now you have successfully installed AWS CLI also, right? Okay. Now the next step is we need to create AWS access key ID as well as AWS secret access key ID. So how to create? So first of all, go to your AWS account and here as you can see your username. Here is your user, right? So go to the user and here security credentials. Go to the security credentials here. And here let's scroll down. So here after scroll down, as you can see, access keys. So here first of all click on create access key. Then here I'm going to choose other. Then click on next. Then add description, but I don't want to add any description, so I'm going to skip this. Click on create an access key. So here is our access key. Firstly, let's read this. If you lose or forget your secret access key or you cannot retrieve it, instead create a new access key and make the old key inactive. So for that here, I'm going to download my .csv file. Okay, and now I'm going to use my access key and secret access key as well. So now let's copy access key first of all. Now let's configure our AWS. So let's enter our command AWS configure. Now it will ask me AWS access key ID. So I'm going to enter my AWS access key ID. Now AWS secret access key ID. So let's copy. So let's copy. Okay. Now it asks me the AWS region. So my region is AP-South 1. Okay. Now it's done. So now let's clear the screen first. Okay. Now it's done. Now let's check the next step. We have successfully created our AWS access key and secret access key. Now we have successfully configured our AWS CLI. Now the next step is create Amazon EKS cluster using EKS CTL. So now you can see the command to create EKS cluster in AWS using EKS CTL. Now in command, as you can see, the command here, EKS CTL create cluster hyphen name, then our cluster name, then region, then version, and then node group name, and node type t2.micro and nodes 2, right? So let's copy the command and I'm going to create my EKS CTL cluster, AWS cluster using EKS CTL. So first of all, here I'm going to change my cluster name, demo cluster. So my cluster name will be DevOps cluster. My cluster name will be DevOps cluster and region is AP South 1 and the version is, the default version is 1.27. Okay. And now I'm going to create my cluster with the name DevOps cluster. Now, firstly, before creating cluster, if I go to my cluster page, and as you can see, there is no any cluster as of now. As you can see, no cluster. You don't have any cluster, right? Okay, so let's create cluster here using this command. So now let's enter. Now, as you can see, it's creating cluster. You can see EKS CTL version and using AP South 1 region. And as you can see, here two sequential subtasks and so on. So first of all, building cluster stack, EKS CTL, DevOps cluster, right? My cluster name is DevOps cluster. Okay, now if I go to my cluster page and refresh the page here, so it's taking few seconds or few minutes to creating cluster. So as you can see, my cluster name is DevOps cluster and the status is creating and the Kubernetes version is 1.27 and provider is EKS, right? That means it's creating. So it take few minutes to replace this creating with active. So as you can see, it's creating, it's still creating. So wait for few seconds. Now our cluster will create. You can see as well as instance node group, right? So wait for a few seconds, it creating. So as you can see here, we have successfully created our cluster with the name DevOps cluster and the status is active and Kubernetes version to 1.27 and provider EKS, right? So we have successfully created our cluster and status is active. Now if I go to my instance and here, as you can see, so now as you can see, this is my cluster with the name DevOps cluster and the status is active and the Kubernetes version is 1.27 and the provider is EKS, right? So that means we have successfully created our cluster with the name DevOps cluster, right? And you can see the status is active. So we have successfully create our cluster and then we have successfully launched our instance and node group and so on. We are here is our in our region AP South 1. So as you can see, my region AP South 1, my region is Mumbai and the region is AP South 1. So we have successfully created our cluster, DevOps cluster in our region Mumbai AP South 1. You can see my region AP South 1. That means we have successfully created our cluster in this region. Okay. Now it's done. Now the next is we need to create Elastic Container Registry. So here, if you search here, ECR, right? Amazon ECR, AECR, that means Amazon Elastic Container Registry. Then here, this is the page of our repository registry, Amazon Elastic Container Registry. So as you can see, there is no any repositories right now, right? So you can see here, this is the private repository. So as of now, there is no any repository. So we need to create new repository, right? So click on create repository. So here, first of all, create repository, visibility setting private. Then if I scroll down here, we need to enter our repository name. So my repository name will be DevOps hint, right? Okay. Then you can see here 0 out of 256 character maximum to minimum, and the first name must start with a letter and can only contain lowercase letters, numbers, hyphens, underscores, periods, and forward slash. That means here we can't enter caps, right, in first letter. So we here you can see first letter only contains lowercase. Okay, now my repository name will be DevOps Saint, right? So if I scroll down, as you can see here, the tag image tag immediately. So as of now, it's disabled. Then keep as it is, scan on push disabled. Then encryption setting also disabled, right? So keep as it is. You need to enter only your name, and the visibility setting is private, right? Then after scroll down and click on create repository. Sorry, click on create repository. So as you can see, it's creating. So wait for a few seconds. So as you can see, successfully created repo with the name DevOps scene, right? Okay, if I go to my instance, as I told you, we have successfully launched two instances when we successfully create our cluster, right? Our cluster name is DevOps cluster. When we successfully create our cluster using EKS CTL, then we have successfully create node group as well as instance, right? So we have successfully created two instances. So let's check. Okay, it take few seconds. So now let's check the repository, right? So our repository name is DevOps Sync, and here is the URI, then created timing, then tag immutably disabled, right? Manual and encryption type, and so on, right? So that's the details about our Amazon ECR repository, right? That's our ECR repository. Okay, that means we have successfully create our repository, and our repository name is DevOps. Okay, now the next step is, before checking next step, let's check our instance. Okay, now the next step is we need to create GitHub repository, right? Why? Because here we are going to deploy Node.js app to EKS using GitHub Actions, right? So that's why here we need a GitHub repository. So we need to create GitHub repository first, right? So as you can see here I have already created repository with the name Deploy Node.js App to EKS using GitHub Actions, right? So you can see my repository with the name Deploy Node.js App to EKS using GitHub Actions, right? And in my repository, as you can see, there is only one file with the name readme.md, and this is the default file, right? Okay. And my repository is public, right? So if you want, then you can keep your repository private also. But my repository is public, and here, as of now, I have only one file with the name readme.md file. Now I'm going to copy the code. Sorry, click on code. First of all, I'm going to clone my repository. So how to clone? So click on code and copy the HTTPS. Okay. Now here I'm going to use git bash to clone my repository. So how to clone? So there is a command, enter git clone, and then a repository. So then HTTPS that we have just copied. So as you can see, cloning into Deploy Node.js App to EKS using GitHub Actions. So it's done. Okay. So it's done. So let's go to the C drive and let's check our repository folder. So I'm going to my C drive, then users, then administrator, and here let's check our repository folder. So my repository folder name is Deploy Node.js App to EKS using GitHub Action. Here's the folder, right? And in our folder, there is no any file. Right now, we have only one file, readme.md file, right? So here, this is our Node.js project, right? So here, I have I have one project, Node.js. So here's my project. So I'm going to copy my project files and paste into my repository folder. Skip this file. Okay, it's done. Right, so we have successfully paste our file in our repository folder, right? Deploy Node.js app to EKS using GitHub Actions. So first of all, we need to understand our code first, right? So that's why here I'm going to use this Visual Studio Code to understand our code first. So I'm going to open my folder into this. So let's open our folder. So our folder name is Deploy to Node.js. Deploy Node.js to EKS using GitHub Action. So let's search our folder here. In C drive, users, HP, then search deploy here. Okay. So as you can see here, this is our folder, right? Deploy Node.js app to EKS using GitHub Actions. So now let's understand the code first, one by one, right? So as you can see our files, our project files. So first of all, there is a folder .github, then .git ignore, .docker ignore file, then deployment.yaml file, then docker file, then package.json, then readme file, then server.js, and then last service.yaml file. So let's understand one by one. Start from deployment.yaml file. So let's open our deployment.yaml file first. Okay. So now in deployment.yaml file, as you can see, first of all, there is a API version, right? Then apps version 1. Then in kind, there is a deployment, right? Then metadata, there is a name demos, right? So here I'm going to change the name demos into Node.js. As well as my app name will be also Node.js. Okay. Then next is, okay. Then next here, my app name will be Node.js, right? Here also. Okay. Now containers. So in container, there is a name my container. So our container name will be here Elastic Container Registry. So our Elastic Container Registry repository name is DevOps. So that's why I'm going to enter my DevOps repository container name DevOps. Okay. Now next is image. So where is the image? So as you can see, if I go to my repository, Amazon Elastic Container Registry. So if I go to my repository, there is a URI, as you can see. So I'm going to copy my URI and paste here. Okay. So as you can see in image, there is our account ID, AWS account ID, then dkr.ecr. There is our region ap-south1 amazon.com slash and our container registry name, right? ECR name, then colon, and I'm going to enter 1.1. That's my image ID. Okay, so that's my image ID, sorry, image tag. That's my image tag was colon 1.1. Then I'll after that, image pull policy always port. Here I'm going to use container port 8080. Okay, so let's save this file. And here in image tag, as you can see image, there is our AWS account number, 12 digit account number, then dkr.ecr.ap south1, then our amazon.com slash, that's our container name, container registry name, colon 1.1, right? So let's save the file. Okay, so that now that's our deployment.yaml file. Now the next is Docker file. So let's check Docker file. So in Docker file, let's check one by one. So in Docker file, first of all, create app directory. As you can see, work directory, the location. Then here install app dependencies. Then a wildcard is used to ensure both package.json and package.log.json copy. So as you can see, the copy package.json. Then here run npm to install, right? As you can see in comment section, if you are building your code for production, then run npm ci, then bundle app source and expose 8080 and the node and server.js file. So that's our Docker file. Next is package.json file. So here, as you can see in package.json file, firstly name, then version 1, then description node.js on Docker, then author and main server.js file, and a script start node server.js dependencies and so on. So that's the package.json file, and that's our readme.md file. That's the default file. Now let's check server.js file. That's the important, right? So in server.js file, as you can see, there is firstly use strict, then construct of expression, and so on. There is a const port 8080 and host is 0.0.0.0. That means any IP address, right? There is no any specific IP address. There is 0.0.0.0 IP address. Then here you can see it will send hello world, right? It will send hello world. That means when we are accessing our browser, there is hello world, right? That's our final output. There is hello world. When we check our final output, so there is hello world. Okay, so you can see it will send hello world, right? When we run our this project, when we push this code into our repository, then we will get hello world into our browser. So that's our output. So as you can see, running on HTTPS host means that's our instance IP dot sorry colon and port number is 8080. When we run this on our console on our browser, then we will get hello world, right? So that's our server.js file. Now the next is service.yaml file. So in service.yaml file, as you can see, there is a API version, then kind, then name, metadata name. So here also I'm going to change the name with Node.js and selector app also Node.js. Okay, and the protocol TCP port numbers 80, target port 8080, and type is load balancer. Here we are going to use the type is load balancer, right? So let's save this file also. Okay, now let's check our important file, that means our workflow. So let's check our workflow. As you can see, our workflow name is main.yaml file. So let's understand workflow first. So here is our workflow. So first of all, in workflow, as you can see, there is a name, Node.js app deployed to EKS, our workflow name. Then on push branch main, pull request branch on name, main. Now let's check job. So first job is deploy, runs on Ubuntu latest. So that's our operating system. Then steps, so first of checkout code. So here we are going to use action slash checkout repository, and the version is 3. Then we are going to use then we are going to install kubectl. So here also we are going to use this repository setup kubectl, and the version is 2.0, and here you can see the version 1.27 is default for kubectl now, right? Then next next is next next is configure AWS credentials. So here we are going to use this configure AWS credential, and here we are going to use this repository AWS action configure AWS credential, and the version is 1. And here we are going to use some environment variables, some secrets, secrets. So as you can see here, first of all, here you can see there is a AWS access key ID, and the secret is AWS access key ID, AWS secret access key ID, right? So we need to set these secrets on our GitHub Action repository, right? So we need to set these two secrets on our GitHub repository. First AWS access key ID, and the other one AWS secret access key ID, right? Okay. Now the next is login to Amazon ECR. So here you can see uses. Here we are going to use this repository AWS Action Amazon ECR login version 1. Right. Then next is build, tag, and push Docker image to Amazon ECR. So as you can see, there is an environment variable. There is set some environment variable. First for registry. So you can see in registry there is a step.login ecr.output.registry. That means this line go to our Amazon ECR. That means here. This line go to in our Amazon ECR registry. Right? Which line? Here in registry. Step.login ECR output.registry. That means this line go to this our repository. Okay. Now the next is here our repository name. So our repository name is DevOpsint. So let's enter here DevOpsint. Okay. Now the image tag is 1.1. Okay. If you remember, if I go to my deployment.yaml file, as you can see here, we are use 1.1, which that's the image tag, right? So that's we are using our YAML file, our workflow, right? You can see the image tag 1.1, right? Okay. Now the next is run docker build dot hyphen t, then registry. The registry means our this page, right? Then repository means DevOps int, a colon, image tag it means 1.1. That means we are going to build this Docker image to this registry. That means our DevOps int registry. Then next is Docker push registry. That means that line. Then repository, DevOps int, and then colon and image tag 1.1. That means we are going to push this image into this repository, and the tag is 1.1. Okay. Now the next is update kube config, right? Then here run AWS EKS update kube config and name is demo. So our name is our cluster name is DevOps. So let's check our cluster name. And as you can see, our cluster name is DevOps cluster, right? So we need to change this here. Our cluster name, the name DevOps cluster, right? That's our cluster name, DevOps cluster. Okay. Now the next is here deploy to EKS, and here our kubectl apply hyphen f deployment.yaml file, and then kubectl apply hyphen f service.yaml file, right? Okay. So let's save this, right? Now, okay, YAML file, then deployment.yaml. Oh, sorry, our workflow, then deployment.yaml file, then Docker file, package.json file, server.js file, then service.yaml file. Okay, now let's save this file, and now let's push this code into our repository. So now let's open a terminal and let's enter our command to push. So now let's enter our command to push this code into a repository, right? So now we are going to push this code into our repository. So here is our repository, right? Deploy Node.js App to EKS using GitHub Actions. So now let's push this code into our repository. So now as you can see, now we are going to push this code into our repository, right? So here's our repository, right? So let's push this code into our repository. So the first command is to push this code into our repository. So the command is git add dot. So the first command is git add dot to push this code into our repository. So let's enter the command git add dot git add dot, the next command is git commit hyphen m, and in double quote our commit. So our commit will be files added. Let's enter. So it's creating. Okay, now the last step is, last command is to push this code into a repository. So the command is git push. Let's enter. So wait for a few seconds. It's in progress. Okay. So it's done. As you can see, it's done. So go to the repository and go to the actions and let's check. Now our job will fail. Why? Let's check the reason. So let's go to the action and let's check. As you can see, files added and this is in progress. As you can see, it's failed. Why? Let's check. Because there is no any secrets added here, right? We don't have any secrets. We need to add secrets here, right? Which secret? First, AWS secret access key ID, AWS access key ID, and then AWS secret access key ID, right? If I go to my code, as you can see our files. So let's add secrets. So go to the settings, then let's scroll down, and as you can see, secrets and variables. So click on it, go to the actions, and here we need to add secrets, right? As you can see, as of now there is no any secrets. We need to add two secrets, AWS access key ID as well as AWS secret access key ID. So here we are successfully download files, right? So go to the downloads. We have successfully download our CSV file. Let's check our CSV file here, right? Now let's copy our AWS access key ID first. So here let's create new repository secret. and here add your secret name. So our secret name is AWS access key ID. Here is the secret name. Then enter your secret, right? So our secret is here. So let's copy our AWS access key ID. And let's enter here. Click on add secret. Our secret name is AWS access key ID. Now add secret. Okay. Now the next is AWS secret access key ID. AWS secret access key ID. Then click on add secret. Okay, now it's done. Now we have successfully added two secrets here. First AWS access key ID and the other one AWS secret access key ID, right? Okay, now let's run our job. Now as you can see, it's done. Now let's run our workflow. So go to the code. Open our workflow folder. Okay, so that's our workflow now. So let's run our workflow, right? So click on commit changes, then click on commit. Okay, so now let's check it's running. Now go to the actions and let's check our workflow. It takes few seconds to complete. So as you can see, update main.yaml file. So let's check our workflow. So now it's in progress, as you can see. So as you can see our step, you can see first of set up job, right? Then check out code. Now configure AWS credential, then log into Amazon ECR. That means it successfully go to the Amazon ECR page, right? Then now build, tag and push Docker image to Amazon ECR. So wait for few seconds. So it take few seconds to complete our job. So wait for few seconds. So as you can see, our deploy job is succeed. You can see succeed in this minutes, and here is the step. So let's check the step. So first of all, set up job, then check out code. Then we have successfully installed kubectl, right? We have successfully installed kubectl. So there is a repository and the version is 1.27. So let's check the step. So you can see we have successfully installed kubectl. After that, configure AWS credential, right? Here we have set the two secrets, one AWS access key id and the other one AWS secret access key id, right? You can see there is a configure. So here we have successfully configured our AWS access key id, AWS secret access key id, and the region is AP South 1, right? That means you have successfully configured our AWS credential. Then next is log into Amazon ECR. Right, so we have successfully logged into our Amazon ECR. First of all, go to the Amazon ECR page, then our registry name, right, and then our tag. You can see, right? Okay. Now, then next is build, tag, and push Docker image to Amazon ECR. So you can see here. First of all, we are going to use we are build our team image, then tag, then push image Docker image to Amazon ECR, right? So you can see here. First of all, build image, and the command is here Docker build -t registry repository name colon image tag. Then next is here, right? You can see. Okay. Now the next is update our kube config. You can see. You can see we have update our kube config, run AWS EKS update config hyphen name and our cluster name, DevOps cluster, right? Okay. Now the next is deploy to EKS. That means our Amazon Elastic Container Registry. Sorry, that means our cluster, EKS cluster. So the our deployment.yaml file, and here you can see deployment.apps and Node.js created. Our app name is Node.js, right? And service Node.js created. Now then post login to Amazon ECR, and then our job is complete, right? Okay. Now it's done. We have successfully deploy our job. You can see succeed. Okay. Now let's go to the container, sorry, repository, Amazon Elastic Container Registry, and let's go to our repository and let's check our image. And as you can see here, image tag and so on, push tag timing and so on. So let's check our image. So as you can see, here is our image, right? Our image tag and the push timing and the size and the URL and so on, right? Okay. Now if I go to my command, and here if I run the command, kubectl get nodes. So as you can see, there is nodes. Okay, now let's enter kubectl get pods. So as you can see, our app name Node.js and ready, and the status is running, right? Okay, now let's run the command kubectl get svc. That means service. Now you can see our name Node.js, the type is load balancer, and the cluster IP and the external IP. Now let's copy the external IP and let's hit on browser and let's check the output. So our final output will be hello world, right? That's our service.js file. So let's check. So let's enter the external IP. So now you can see hello world, right? That's our js file, server.js file. So that's our final output, right? So you can see hello world. So that means we are successfully deploy Node.js app to EKS, right? Using GitHub Actions. So